In this edition of Roots and Reflections, we continue our inquiry into the most important piece of real estate on the planet, purchased by King David 3,000 years ago. This transaction is recorded in the book of Samuel. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. I spoke to archaeologist Gabi Barkai about this purchased inheritance.
When the temple still stood, was not only the national and religious focus, but it was the heart of the Jewish people. It was the place where they believed the first rock was put down by the Almighty and the rest of the world was created around it. It was the place where Abraham attempted to sacrifice his son. The binding of Isaac took place on that mountain. That is the place which was purchased by David from the Jebusites, and the place where he built his altar to stop the plague among his people. Is the place of the first temple built by his son Solomon. That is the place where the returnees from the Babylonian captivity built the second temple. It is the root of Jewish history. It is the source of all what Jewish history is about.
Here on the Temple Mount, the Cohens, priests, and Levites ministered before the Lord God of Israel.
So when the high priest was inside the Holy of Holies, he was able to look through Nicanor gate, through the copper doors, to the eastern gate, and he was able to see the priest that was in Mount of Olives, that was able to see the sunrise from the mountains of Moab, and then he knew that he was permitted to go into the Holy of Holies.
It's a small world, especially here on the Temple Mount, as I run into my friend Ilan, one of the best tour guides in Israel.
When we found the eastern gate, the original golden gate, we can tell exactly where was the temple. Let's say that most of the scholar thinks that the temple was in the center of Mount Moriah, over the foundation rock. Now the eastern gate should be somewhere over there, but we cannot do any excavation. That's one of the problematic issues here in the Temple Mount. We're not allowed to do any excavation here in the Temple Mount or in the area of the Eastern Gate. There is a theory of Israeli Professor Kaufman, that thinks that maybe the temple was over there, where you see the copper dome. It's called the Dome of the Spirit. And he thinks that this dome was the exact location of the temple because it's in one straight line with the present Golden Gate.
This is the Dome of the Spirits. Dr. Kaufman believes that actually the temple stood in this very place because it was in a direct east-west axis out through the Eastern Gate towards, of course, the Mount of Olives. Could it be that a future temple can be built in this place, standing next to the Dome of the Rock?
After a great research that we made, the location of the second temple was on the place where today the Dome of the Rock is located. Actually, the Dome of the Rock is located on the place of the Holy of Holies.
Roots and Reflections is a program created to bring you the Bible, culture, and education from Israel. It is our desire to build you up in your faith, to bring you hope both now and in the future, and to share God's love with all of you. Call the number on your screen and partner with us as we seek to share the good news from Jerusalem to the ends of the earth.
Now, the Dome of the Rock, they said, was built at 691. We cannot go into the Dome of the Rock. Since September 2000, tourists cannot go into the Dome of the Rock or to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They can only visit the Temple Mount. The mosques are open only for Muslims.
We're heading over to the Eastern Gate.
This is the gate that also by tradition, so we read in Zechariah chapter 14, the Messiah will enter the Temple Mount. Here You can see that it's sealed. So this is the Golden Gate, or in Hebrew, Sha'ar HaRachamim, Gates of Mercy. And this gate is the only gate today in the Eastern Wall. The original gate could be or down below this gate that you see here, or further south in one straight line with the Golden Dome. So this is one of the controversial issues.
God speaks about the Eastern Gate, the Golden Gate, that would be sealed until the time that only the Messiah or the Prince could come through this gate. And to this day, we have that gate sealed.
Behind me is the Golden Gate, or the Gate of Mercy. Ezekiel says, "Then he brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, which faces toward the east. But it was shut. And the Lord said to me, This gate shall be shut. It shall not be open, and no man shall enter by it, because the Lord God of Israel has entered by it. Therefore it shall be shut. It is reserved for the Messiah, who will pass through after touching down on the Mount of Olives."
The very blueprint of the salvation of the world is established on the Temple Mount.
For 1,000 years, the Temple Mount was confined to the natural rounded ridge familiar to the patriarch Abraham atop Mount Moriah. It took King Herod the Great to expand the site, creating a huge artificial platform 500 by 500 cubits that even Solomon would not have recognized.
Herod enlarged the Temple Mount in the 20s of the 1st century BC and more than doubled the area and made it into the largest religious compound of the whole ancient world. There is no place larger than that.
According to the ancient Jewish historian Josephus Flavius, Herod undertook a very great work to build the temple of God and make it larger in compass, to raise it to a most magnificent altitude. Josephus says Herod took away the old foundations and laid others and erected the temple on them. The Temple Mount was simply not big enough. Herod had to expand the area by building under the retainer walls and then filling the empty space with vaults and rubble. The joint of Herod's extension can be seen right there in a seam of the eastern wall. The sages praised the glory of Herod's temple, saying, "Whoever has not seen Herod's structure has never seen a beautiful building in his life." In front of the temple was a magnificent courtyard with 7 gates, while the whole area itself was surrounded by pillared cloisters, the greatest of which was the royal portico. There were 5 gates to the Temple Mount. The Mishnah says the sanctuary was 100 cubits square and 100 cubits in height. That means 50 meters high, towering over this valley. Except for the Great Pyramids in Egypt, it was the tallest building in the ancient world, built atop the largest man-made temple platform in the world. An impressive structure. Christian and Jewish tradition has the Messiah coming back through this gate. But there's an Islamic cemetery on the other side. And apparently you can't defile, the dead. So how does the Messiah get in over the cemetery?
Oh boy. There is a tradition that in the future there will be a bridge of 7 arches from Mount of Olives to Mount Moriah. Okay, and over this bridge, the Messiah will be able to cross the Kidron Valley and to enter the Eastern Gate.
For an experience of a lifetime, come up and join us during the Feast of Tabernacles for the Sukkot celebration, together with the remnant of Israel and the remnant of the nations, for in-depth Bible teaching, wonderful dance and praise before the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. As we come together once again, October 12th to 24th, go to our website, SukkotCelebration.com, or call us today and come up to the city of Jerusalem.